Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the real-world mechanics of government price caps. We're going to take some classic economic theory and reverse engineer it to show you exactly how policy impacts our daily lives. If you've ever wondered how markets actually react when rules are artificially forced onto them, you are definitely in the right place. Okay, let's dive into this.
So what actually happens when a government steps in and makes it literally illegal for the price of something to go up? I mean, on paper, it sounds fantastic, right? Cheaper goods for everyone. But as we're going to see, the market mechanism is kind of like a force of nature, and trying to block it creates a fascinating and honestly pretty counterintuitive economic puzzle.
Here is our roadmap for today. First, definition and location. Second, the course shortage implication. Third, allocation methods. And finally, black marketing.
Let's start with part 1, definition and location.
So, what exactly is a price ceiling? Simply put, it's the absolute maximum legal price a supplier is allowed to charge for a good or service. The key phrase to remember here is maximum legal price. It's a hard cap. You literally cannot charge a single cent more than this line. And for this to actually mean anything, the government has to deliberately fix this price below the standard equilibrium price. You know, that natural sweet spot where supply perfectly meets demand. Usually, this is done with the best of intentions, mostly to try and keep essential goods affordable for the everyday consumer.
But here's the catch. If the government messes up the placement, the whole policy just falls flat. Take a look at the upper line here labeled OP1. If the government sets a price ceiling way up there, above the natural equilibrium point E, it does absolutely nothing. Why? Well, at that high price, suppliers want to produce a ton, which creates a massive excess supply. That's the gap you see from G to H. And then market forces just auto-correct. Sellers see all this extra stock piling up on their shelves. They panic a bit, and they lower their prices to get rid of it. Boom. The price gets pulled right back down to equilibrium. So a ceiling above the natural price is totally ineffective.
Moving on to part 2, the course shortage implication.
Now check out the lower line labeled OP2. This is where things get really intense. The government has aggressively locked that maximum price below the natural equilibrium. See that horizontal gap labeled K to L? That right there represents a sudden, severe void in the market. It is a literal manifestation of excess demand. The natural balance has been completely broken, and suddenly you have way more people trying to buy the product than there are products on the shelf. Imagine walking into a grocery store expecting super cheap bread, only to find the aisles just completely bare.
It's basically a mathematical plot twist. Because the price is artificially low, buyers naturally want more of it, right? So the quantity demanded stretches all the way out to the right to OQ2. But now put yourself in the supplier's shoes. At this legally mandated low price, your margins are totally squeezed. You might not even be covering your production costs. So what do? You don't produce as much. The quantity supplied shrinks back to OQ1. Demand roars forward, supply retreats, and that massive gap between Q1 and Q2, that is your shortage.
Because of this, the absolute most critical data point here is OQ1. Despite this huge wave of consumer demand reaching all the way to OQ2, the actual amount of goods that gets bought and sold drops dramatically to OQ1. I mean, you can't buy what isn't produced. It's the ultimate irony of the price ceiling. The good is technically cheaper, sure, but there's significantly less of it available for anyone to actually take home. It essentially transforms affordability into absolute unavailability.
Which brings us to part 3, allocation methods.
So how does society actually handle this when prices aren't allowed to rise? Well, according to the source material, there are 3 textbook methods that kick in when a severe shortage hits. We've got first come, first served, allocation by sellers' preferences, and formal rationing. Let's break down how each of these actually plays out on the ground.
First up is first come, first served. Since there's no high price to sort out the buyers, people end up paying with their time. Buyers are forced to stand in these long, exhausting queues, just praying they reach the front before the limited stock runs dry. The source actually notes this system has been used in India during severe shortages for daily essentials, things like kerosene, petrol, and even onions. It's a very physical, tangible frustration. Just imagine losing hours of your day standing outside in the weather instead of working or being with your family, all just to secure basic necessities.
Then you have allocation by sellers' preferences. When supply gets incredibly tight, the power shifts entirely away from the buyer and goes straight to the shopkeeper. They get to pick and choose who actually walks away with the scarce product. And yeah, human bias definitely emerges here. A seller is highly likely to keep the product hidden under the counter, saving it only for their regular customers, their friends, or VIPs, leaving everyone else completely empty-handed. If you aren't on the store owner's good side, that low legal price doesn't mean a thing.
The third method is formal rationing. This happens when the government steps back in to try and fix the shortage they just created with their first intervention. They directly issue ration cards or coupons to families, dictating exactly how much of a specified product they're allowed to buy at the fixed price. For example, in India, families below the poverty line, or BPL families, get specific ration cards that let them buy fixed quantities of wheat and rice at government prices. It's highly structured, absolutely, but it requires a massive amount of bureaucracy to manage.
And finally, Part 4. Black Marketing.
A black market is exactly what it sounds like. A market where goods are sold illegally at prices far higher than the legal limit set by the government. Remember, the government strictly forbids any transactions above that OP2 price line. So, anyone willing to pay more and any seller willing to charge more has to take their business completely underground.
And this brilliantly illustrates the core psychology at play. As the source states, consumers are willing to pay a higher price to get extra quantity while the sellers stand to gain. It's the perfect, albeit illegal, storm of incentives. You've got desperate buyers who are exhausted by rationing or endless lines, and opportunistic sellers who realize they can make a massive profit just by bypassing the law. Ultimately, a policy that was designed to keep prices low often ends up breeding a shadow market where prices are higher than ever before.
So, that leaves us with a pretty profound question to wrap things up. Do the protective, often noble intentions behind price ceilings actually outweigh the inevitable reality of severe shortages, endless queues, and illegal black markets? It is a fascinating clash between economic theory and human behavior. Definitely something to chew on the next time you look at a price tag. Thanks for joining me today.